What's up, everyone? This is Travis here with Bronze to Diamond Week, and today we're looking at a Platinum Protoss replay. This was sent to me by this fine gentleman, Makra. He actually sent me a bunch of different replays with some descriptions of them, which is awesome because that's the way. If you're going to send me replays, send them with some descriptions of the game, kind of your thoughts of what was going on. Helps me to choose a replay, so I decided to go with this one. So this one we're going to be focusing primarily on scouting and then micro, because what we're going to see is a certain scouting choice that was made, or actually rather a choice that was not made, and then the repercussions of that and how a certain attack will be held off using the art of micromanagement. And we're going to see some micro mistakes that we will highlight, and just to bring certain things to your attention, just the importance of just very minor things, especially having to do with force fields. Okay, so here's the first thing with the scouting. So the scout gets in, as if by a miracle, barely getting past that supply depot, and of course he's stuck, and all he's going to see is everything standard from the Terran. So what you can assume just from that is that it's not going to be any kind of super fast expansion play. Now normally with this very first probe, I would try to get him out of the base. Just try to check the gases. You'll see the barracks at the front, and then if the Terran's going for a wall in like this, try to get your probe out so you can go in for what is called your secondary scout. The way, you've probably heard me talk about it before, but the way I think of things in my mind is I try to group things together and make these chunks of decisions and things like that. And the way I approach scouting in the early game is to have your primary scout, which is your very first probe that you would send in, and it's exactly what the first probe did, to check the gases. And then the secondary scout, when there's a wall in, to poke up at the wall, see what units are there, and see if any add-ons are there, and any more buildings you can see. And this is the first place where Makra makes a mistake. He doesn't do any kind of secondary scouting, and so he never sees the tech lab here. He never sees the other barracks that are very appropriately placed, that if his probe was up here, he would actually be able to see these barracks, and he would know exactly what kind of attack is coming in. So that is the first real place where there is a clear mistake in scouting. And if you lose your first probe, I would recommend sending out another probe sometime right around now, actually. Just to go check that add-on, because it's important to see. You can also see if he's researching something. So in this case, you would see stim is coming down. So to be expecting a stim push. I guess I didn't say it, but I'm not going to be focusing on the build in this game. The build is pretty cleanly executed, and it makes a decent amount of sense. So we're just going to focus on something else. Alright, I'm going to fast forward through this, and Makra ends up going for a 3 gateway expand. He gets some stalkers out, gets a sentry out, singles out, and then he's going for an expand. And then he's going to load up with some more sentries to defend this in case there's any kind of attack coming. So here is a big missed opportunity. This scout went and checked the third base. There's no third base. There's no expansion here. So at this point, he's got to be wondering what's going on inside of this Terran base. Well, you could pretty much see exactly what's happening just by suiciding this probe up the ramp, and it's absolutely worth it. And the decision that would be made here, once scouting this, is seeing the 2 tech labs, seeing all the different upgrades going down. In fact, every single upgrade here, except for the Reaper one. You've got to know that there's going to be a lot of Marauders incoming just by seeing this alone. So the decision that I would make at that point is knowing that I'm going to have to get some Immortals out. Gateway units just cannot handle Marauders in this large of numbers, and you've got to get something like an Immortal out. Now it happens to be that this Terran player is going for a big all-in, where he's getting 3 barracks, a factory, and a starport. This factory and starport are not scoutable. However, just seeing these 3 barracks alone is enough to know that you're going to kind of have to back off on probes a little bit and focus on army. But without seeing those, we're going to see a little bit of a mistake. So you see the expansion here by Makra is down, and we're going to see a robotic facility added on and a Twilight Council. Okay, now why does this not make sense? Look at all the directions that everything is going here. And how they're not going towards an army. Where do you go here? All right, spending. Yeah, that's not a very good tab. That's kind of stupid. All right, well, the recent spending, that spending is an aggregate of the whole game, but the recent spending is on tech and expanding. So robotics facility, Twilight Council, and an expansion. Been getting some units out of the gateways, but not a huge amount of units. And then let's look at where the Chrono Boost goes. Okay, the first thing with this robotics facility is to get an observer in there to see exactly what's going on. Very, very important. Chrono Boost is happening on the Nexus, so even besides just getting the Nexus and all this other tech, the Chrono Boost is also going to getting more probes out, and we're getting a nice probe advantage. It's 34 to 32, but we're on 2 bases, so our probes are going to be better. So here's scouting mistake number 2. Gets the observer out, but forgets about it. I'd recommend rallying this robotics facility always to the front base, and yeah, just that would help a lot in this circumstance. So more Chrono Boost going down on the Nexuses, the Nexi, and not adding of any gateways. Right now is the perfect time to add gateways. You just got another expansion up. You have twice as many basically minerals to mine from, so your mineral income is going to be going way up. I'd say now is not the time for Chrono Boosting more probes out. Now is the time for defending the attack that you know is coming in. So this observer did indeed see the units, and he's going to turn around in a second. Never getting fully in to scout the base, so he's not seeing the medevacs incoming. And the Terran player is going to actually do something that I didn't expect, but I was expecting whenever I was first watching this replay that he was going to do a multi-pronged attack, where he's going to do some kind of pressure at the front and then drop up here, or just use the medevacs to spot and take out anything that's along the edges. I think the Terran player just missed an opportunity to do that, honestly, myself. So here's the situation. Handful of gateway units, handful of Marines and Marauders. Let's look at the army supply. Army supply is slightly in the Terran's favor. Of course, he is building an expansion, so it's not a complete all-in, but it's pretty much an all-in. If the Protoss holds this off well, then Protoss is certainly ahead. Okay, mistake not adding the probes to the assimilator here, and not having more gateways coming up. Right, the reason I said add gateways is because you know that the Terran is going for a big one-base pressure. So after you expand and you've got your probes spread out across more mineral patches, you're gonna have to add some gateways on. And with just 3 gateways, it's too close to call. The other extremely important thing was seeing these tech labs, and the Marauder here. I didn't show up, but the Marauder was delayed from coming out after that observer finished, and we're gonna see a mistake here with the Marauder. So at this point, honestly, I would have had some stalkers up here to protect against the medevac drops, because that was what I was expecting to come. And with getting blink stalker, you can always blink them back down to the low ground. So that was another option for the Terran player that didn't happen to have happened. All right, so the attack is coming in. Macross sees it. He's got the observer. Goal of this is to split off just a couple units, maybe just like 5 or 6 units, not very many at all. And this all comes down to practice with the force fields. The force fields come down a little premature, but that's fine. In this case, basically your mentality should be the longer you can delay this, the more you're getting ahead, because you have 2 bases mining. We should have this gas down, and that's going to become very important here in a second, but we should just be focusing on warping in units. Notice the warp gates are not being used, and the Immortal is stuck at the robotics facility. Oh no. That Immortal could be incredibly helpful right now. Second set of force fields. Okay, this is slightly too many units. This is, we'll say, just about half of the units that are actually up at the front fighting. That's a little too many units. Also, composition or a placement of your army. Zealots need to be in front, then Stalkers and Sentries, and get the Guardian Shield going up as fast as possible. Guardian Shield is quite a bit late. The Zealots are having trouble coming up, and now you need to start thinking about, okay, second round of force fields, because this is a lot of units behind here, and barracks units, especially with medevacs, can take out gateway units so quickly. Need to be thinking about the other force fields. In engagements like this, since force fields are so important, be watching your sentries more than pretty much any other unit. Bless me. Okay, so you're waiting for the force field to go down, and then at this point there needs to be force fields going down. Even if you can't get a full wall off, if you can just get one force field down so that they have like basically half the area to stand on this ramp, extremely important. Lost force field there. This sentry is just going around. He's not using guardian shield, he's not using force field, and that, my friends, is the point where it goes way south. And at this point, looking at the armies here, first of all, the warp-ins, there was a warp-in recently. Yeah, I think it was some sentries that got warped in, but didn't even get to use their force fields. At this point, chrono boosting the warp gates is number one, or chrono boosting some more immortals out. Finally, this immortal is coming down. Notice how high the chrono boost is. Don't be afraid to chrono boost your warp gates. If you need units now and you have the money, which we do, chrono boost the warp gates. Don't ever forget about that. A lot of people forget. And before losing these stalkers, I would have just pulled them back and actually going with the probes. Okay, at this point, there's so many decisions to be made here with this attack going kind of south. At this point, you can either abandon this base, or you can try to get one last warp-in in, like right now. There's a warp-in that could be made, and pull all of your probes. Honestly, I think the pulling all the probes option would be a decent option right now. Although it would have been a better option if those last stalkers that just kind of died right here, he had just pulled back instead. Like at this point, basically, like this is when you know it's not going to go well. You've got 4 medevacs healing all these bio units. Pull these stalkers back and just go in with probes and this immortal. But he ends up making the decision to just pull everything away and lose his base. Still no chrono boost going down on the warp gates. Sad to see, unfortunately. Oh, just real quick to just make a random point. A thing I like to do whenever I know that, like, I'm a Protoss, I know the Terran opponent is going for some kind of all-in, is get a pylon up somewhere decently close to his base, so that while you're holding this off, if you're in a position like this where he's probably not going to come up the ramp, you can just warp in like 2 zealots and send him to his base, and it can really disrupt him quite a bit. Anyway, so the base does go down. Finally, these other warp gates are up, and the minerals to gas balance is quite off. Also, vulnerable gateways. And at this point, there's still a chance to win, but I would just, you saved all your probes. Like, here's what I'm thinking. Saved all your probes. Still 39 probes, 35 SCVs. He is expanding, but you can start expanding too, and he's actually more mined out of his main than you are. In fact, yeah, getting very close to being mined out. Only 100 minerals in a couple of those patches. Overall, we have more minerals in our main, so we'll be better off in the long term if we can match his expansion. So I would be trying to just defend my expansion, stay up at the top of the ramp here, don't get aggressive, and defend my expansion. Because, you know, if his is as late as your... His is this late, then yours that even got taken out could still do well. Important to note, when you've got an immortal like this, you've got to target the immortal on the marauders. Very, very important. Not obvious to a lot of people how important that is, but it is very, very important. And then this bio army is just too much, basically, and I hate this base. They're so cramped. They have this big ledge right here, and there's just going to be no way to defend this, really. So that's going to be it. Pulling all the probes, but medevac's pretty darn good, and everything's going to go down. There we have it. Alright, well, this has been Platinum Protoss, so going to be doing Diamond next. Please thumbs up this video if you enjoy this series and want to see more of it. That lets me know that you guys are still interested and want to see more of this type of stuff. Thanks for watching, guys. Please subscribe, and GG.